Tonight, a new threat against Donald Trump. The FBI now investigating an apparent second assassination attempt.
The U.S. Secret Service personnel opened fire on a gunman located near the property line.
The former president's safe, the suspect in custody.
Fortunately, the threat was detected and the threat was eliminated.
Flight crisis averted.
Relieved, actually. We were not sure until this morning.
Praise for Air Canada and its pilots for landing a last-minute deal.
There will be a significant increase in wages being offered to the employees.
MPs face new political realities as they return to Parliament Hill.
Very high stakes for both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh.
The push to move forward with new policies and the promise to prompt an election. Plus, an iconic father-son duo make Emmys history.
Welcome, everybody, to the 76th Emmy Awards.
Eugene and Dan Levy host TV's biggest night, honoring the best in the business.
This is what you wanted, right?
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. We begin with another historic moment in America. The FBI is investigating an apparent second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. The former president was not harmed. He was golfing near his Florida home when a Secret Service agent fired at a man spotted with a rifle in the bushes. It comes just months after a failed assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, raising questions over how a gunman was able to get so close. CTV's Kamal Karamali starts us off.
Police vehicles surround the Trump International Golf Course after shots were fired near Donald Trump just before 2 p.m. Sunday in what the FBI is calling another apparent assassination attempt. The Republican candidate rushed to safety as a precaution. Police say Trump had been playing golf at the time between holes 5 and 6 when Secret Service spotted a rifle barrel in the bushes.
What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence.
Local authorities believe the gunman got within 500 meters of the former president.
The U.S. Secret Service personnel opened fire on a gunman located near the property line.
The gunman then fled in a vehicle, according to police, leaving behind an AK-47 style rifle and 2 backpacks,
which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of.
A witness was able to snap pictures of the gunman's car and license plate. That led to a statewide alert, leading to deputies tracking down a suspect on a nearby highway.
Had there been a gunfight, we were ready to engage.
In a statement, Trump says, "I am safe and well and no one was hurt." The suspect now in custody.
Our prosecutors are currently working up warrants and a motion for pretrial detention for the suspect.
It's been 2 months since the former president was grazed by a bullet in an attempt on his life during a rally in Pennsylvania. FBI officials have still not released a motive in that investigation. Trump's safety and security once again coming into focus.
He is not the sitting president. They do not shut down the entire golf course when he's golfing.
Little has been released about the suspect, but American news agencies have now identified him as 58-year-old Ryan Leslie Ruth. Meanwhile, plenty of reaction continues to come in, including from Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who says she's glad Trump is safe and violence has no place in America. Heather.
Kamal, thank you. Relief for Air Canada passengers tonight as Canada's largest airline and the pilots' union struck a tentative last-minute deal avoiding a work stoppage.
We were not sure until this morning, and we are in a big group going to Halifax, so it would be a bunch of disappointed kids if it didn't go, so we're all happy to go.
The agreement prevented potential travel disruptions today and a lockout or strike next week. The tentative agreement includes a nearly 42% wage increase over 4 years, with 26% backdated to 2023 and a 4% increase each year until 2026.
There will be a significant increase in wages being offered to the employees.
It still needs to be ratified by union members and approved by the airline's board of directors. Air Canada says customers who change their flights this week in anticipation of a potential work stoppage can now change their booking back to the original flight at no cost. MPs return to the House of Commons tomorrow for the start of the fall session. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal minority government will be in the hot seat after a busy summer of opposition parties stacking up against them. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre rallied his party today, repeating a promise to bring down the Liberals and force an election as soon as possible. CTV's Jeremy Charon reports.
When would you like an election?
As soon as possible.
A clear message from Conservative MPs on their way into a one-day caucus meeting in Ottawa.
Justin Trudeau needs to go. Canadians are looking forward to a carbon tax election.
United behind their leader, whose message to his team today was a familiar one.
Canadians cannot wait. They need to vote now for common sense Conservatives, and Jagmeet Singh needs to vote with us to trigger a carbon tax election now.
The Conservatives have vowed that a non-confidence motion is coming this fall in an effort to topple the minority Trudeau government after the NDP ended its supply and confidence deal with the Liberals this summer.
Sellout Jagmeet Singh wants you to believe he's a changed man. He's a totally new person.
The New Democrats have stopped short of committing, though, to send Canadians to the polls right away.
Pierre Poilievre just wants to talk about cuts and cutting all of these programs. And so the NDP will be proceeding vote by vote, like we did during COVID, and looking at the public interest.
And the Liberals maintain their focus only on pushing forward with policies.
Mr. Poilievre will have to explain himself, but for our part, we're coming into Parliament with solutions for Canadians, with solutions that make their lives more affordable.
All of this ahead of crucial Monday by-elections in Montreal and Winnipeg.
Very high stakes for both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh.
La Salle-Verdun, a longtime Liberal stronghold, where the party is hoping to avoid the same fate it saw in Toronto's St. Paul's earlier this summer. While in Elmwood-Transcona, the NDP is trying to hold on to a strong orange seat, but facing a push from the Conservatives.
Now, facing a continued lag in the polls, the outcome of those by-elections could be a referendum on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But so far, he's reiterated he's not going anywhere. Heather?
Jeremy, thanks. For more on this, let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelos. As we just heard there, Vashi, the Tories are going to try and prompt an election. How soon might they have a chance?
Hey, Heather, it all depends kind of on technicalities, and it sounds sort of processy, but the process when it comes to a true minority government is actually really important. The Tories need what's called an opposition day motion in order to turn it into a confidence vote. Previous minority governments, like under Paul Martin at times, they would back end all of those. The Tories get 5 by the end of the year. They'd put them all in December. I spoke to government House Leader Karina Gold. She says she won't do that, that they'll get their opposition day motion fairly soon, which means the NDP will be tested really, really shortly. Like, they ripped up that deal. Are they going to vote with the government? And then conversely, we're also going to find out how closely the Liberals intend to work with the Bloc Québécois in order to stay in power.
All right, something to watch very closely. And Vashi, these by-elections are seen as almost referendums on Trudeau and Singh's leadership. Why is that?
They are huge, Heather, at this point in time, given where both the Liberals and the NDP stand in relation to the Tories in public opinion polling sustained over the last number of months, particularly in these two ridings. In Montreal, this was former Prime Minister Paul Martin's riding in a certain iteration, and it was also most recently Liberal Justice Minister David Lametti. So if Justin Trudeau loses this after losing the Toronto one at the outset of the summer, it's going to raise a lot of questions about his leadership. He's going to get those questions day in and day out. On the other hand, in Winnipeg, that by-election, that riding has been held by a member of the Blakey family on and off for almost decades, and that Blakey family is kind of NDP royalty. If Jagmeet Singh loses that seat, I think you can expect the same thing, day in and day out, questions about why he remains the leader of the NDP. Of course, if the opposite happens and they both hold, well, it's kind of status quo. But if they are to lose those ridings, big questions for both leaders going forward, Heather.
Our chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelos, joining us tonight. Thanks. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets today in support of migrant rights across Canada.
Undocumented people or migrant workers or international students, it distracts from the real solution. The real solution is permanent resident status for all. It is controls on housing. It is ensuring that the minimum wage goes up.
This was one of several rallies held across the country this week. Protesters say changes to Canada's international student and temporary foreign worker programs hurt people already in the country. They want Ottawa to expand access to permanent residency status for all migrants. A migrant tragedy in the English Channel overnight. At least 8 people died during a failed attempt to cross into the UK from northern France. Authorities spotted a rubber vessel in distress. Dozens of people were rescued. 6 were taken to hospital, including a baby with hypothermia. This comes less than 2 weeks after 12 migrants, including 6 children, died when their boat sank in the Channel. 8 people have died in Central Europe, including a firefighter, as flooding forces thousands to flee. The storm named Boris dumped heavy rains, causing flooding in Poland and Czechia, Romania and Austria, where a disaster area has been declared surrounding Vienna. Many people across Europe had to be rescued from flooded areas. More rain and strong winds are expected to continue until at least Monday. Natural disasters in this country are expected to become more frequent and intense. This year has been the costliest on record for weather events, with billions of dollars in damages so far. CTV's Kathy Lee on the calls for more help for homeowners.
Wildfires in the west, flooding in the east, and severe thunderstorms in between. It's been a devastating year for the country.
It will almost certainly be the worst year in Canadian history.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada says claims this year for the Toronto floods, $938 million. Jasper wildfire, more than $800 million. Calgary hailstorm, $2.8 billion. And the storms in Quebec expected to be in the billions.
We're probably on the year looking at over $5 billion in losses. It's partly because things cost a little bit more to replace or to restore, but mainly it's because these events are more frequent and more intense than what we witnessed before.
We are still actually emitting, just globally, as many greenhouse gas emissions as we have in the past. So that means that for the next 50 to 80 years, we're looking at more extreme events.
These extreme events putting more pressure on home insurance premiums, unattainable for homeowners and unsustainable for insurers. Some companies in Alberta have left the province. Others, like Intact, have partnered up with Montana-based wildfire defense systems to provide loss intervention services and attempt to mitigate the cost of extreme weather.
That if we want insurance to be available and affordable into the future in this country, there needs to be some sort of partnership between the governments and between the insurance industry on sharing the cost.
Experts say the focus should also be on reducing the risk on buildings and properties and making it a common practice.
In the future, we could see scenarios where governments are requiring more resilient building material through things like construction codes, building codes.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada says the federal government has announced it's setting up the foundations to partner up with insurance companies to provide high-risk flood insurance. However, it says progress has been slow, and given the current political instability in Ottawa, the concern is the plan won't get off the ground. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
The crew on board that historic SpaceX mission returned safely to Earth after 5 days in orbit.
And there you can
see. The Dragon capsule splashed down off the coast of Florida early this morning. The Polaris Dawn mission made history with the world's first spacewalk by private non-astronauts. Tech billionaire Jared Isaacman and 3 others traveled further into space than any human in 50 years. Coming up.
We're very, very excited to be here tonight.
Canadians make history at the Emmys. Plus, that's a wrap. Highlights from TIFF's final day. British Columbia is opening involuntary care facilities to house people detained under the Mental Health Act.
Is it justified in some cases to provide that care that we know is effective involuntarily? And the consensus in the psychiatric profession is almost absolute that it is.
The highly secure facilities will provide care for people with severe addictions and mental health issues, along with some brain injuries. The first is expected to open in the coming months, with plans to expand throughout the province. Canadian doctors have been watching closely as the number of whooping cough cases soar to new heights. With vulnerable kids now back in school, public health officials are looking to stem the spread of the highly contagious disease. CTV's Garrett Berry has more.
Back to school and back to a fertile breeding ground for coughs, colds, sneezes, and sniffles.
Anytime that people are together in an enclosed space, close together, certainly we can see an increase in the spread of respiratory viruses.
And in Newfoundland and Labrador, an unwelcome guest in classrooms, whooping cough, the bacteria now spreading outside of St. John's and into smaller communities.
We now really have to say that this is a province-wide outbreak.
And outbreaks now across the country, cases surging in Quebec, with more than 13,000 discovered just this year. Increased illness in PEI and New Brunswick, too.
It's not even unique to Canada. There's a resurgence of pertussis in several other parts of the world. And even taking a step back, a resurgence in other vaccine-preventable illnesses.
But here in Newfoundland and Labrador, health officials say there's no sign vaccine uptake is slipping. Instead, they call it waning immunity, vaccines that become a little less effective as time goes on and need to be supplemented with booster shots.
Not all vaccines are created equally, and this one is not as what we would say immunogenic as others, and we do see waning immunity for this infection.
So part of this province's plan is to move whooping cough vaccines forward, offering shots to kids in grade 8 now, instead of making them wait until grade 9. Officials hope that might help with a cluster of cases in the junior high school levels.
Over 60% of the cases that we have are actually in school-age children, and especially we're seeing it in that junior high group.
In the meantime, it's some familiar sounding advice. Stay home if you're sick, cover your cough, and consider wearing a mask. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
Still ahead, turning the page on school curriculum. Looking for input on life skills in the classroom. Ontario is looking to the public for help in shaping its school curriculum. A survey has been sent out to gauge what life skills students should be taught in the classroom. It could include things like first aid, how to change a tire, and tips to shop on a budget. CTV's Heather Wright explains.
Reading, writing, repairing a tire. Ontario is revamping its curriculum and wants input about what should be taught in its classrooms. A survey out this week is looking for feedback on practical life skills students should learn at school. Things like how to change windshield wiper blades, sew a button, and basic first aid.
Do you learn any of these things in school? No. Do you think you should?
Yeah, because I want to be a nurse and I think having first aid would be really helpful.
Ontario schools already teach some of these skills in family studies or home economics. But those classes aren't a requirement to graduate and not everyone takes them.
It's definitely not your grandma's home ec.
Micheline Gallant is with the Ontario Family Studies and Home Economics Educators Association and says they welcome adding more and varied life skills to the curriculum, which already includes how to prepare meals on a budget and how to shop more sustainably.
So how do we actually help students learn to repair clothing? Or to purchase clothing that is good quality.
But in a province where school resources are stretched thin and curriculums are already jam-packed, finding funding and a place for these courses is a challenge.
The devil's in the details, right? And implementation is something it's very important.
The Ontario Public School Boards Association hopes to work with the province on implementing changes to ensure they are tailored to the needs of different boards and that there's proper instruction and facilities to make them worthwhile.
A lot of schools in our boards, they don't have the capacity physically for auto mechanics or even for a home economics class.
Anyone is welcome to weigh in and answer this questionnaire, which will be open until October 1st. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
After the break, that's a wrap. Toronto says goodbye to its starring moment for Hollywood hits. Canadian actors Dan and Eugene Levy made history as the first father-son duo to host the Emmys.
If it goes well tonight, my name is pronounced Levy, not Levy.
And if things go south, my name is pronounced Martin Short.
The Schitt's Creek stars both won Emmys back in 2020. This year, dark comedy series The Bear ate up the competition, winning several big awards. The curtain has closed on the Toronto International Film Festival, wrapping up its 49th year. The festival hosted some of Hollywood's biggest stars while bringing the buzz and some controversy to the world stage. CTV's Christina Tenalia has the highlights.
It's a festival that creates a fall buzz in Toronto. Fans lining the streets, up close and personal with the stars.
You are ahead by a century.
A chorus of Canadiana kicked off the opening night to welcome the Tragically Hip for their documentary.
The Tragically Hip No Dress Rehearsal.
Today, the film won the People's Choice Documentary Award. The film's director thanked the band
for trusting me with their story.
Mike Downey, brother of the band's late lead singer, Gord Downey.
My brother Gord was an incredible guy.
A poignant moment honoring his legacy. The overall People's Choice Award winner is often a precursor to award season success, and this year is no exception.
The Life of Chuck.
I'm so glad that this movie connected with audiences.
The film stars Tom Hiddleston as an accountant. Since 2012, every winner of the festival's top prize has advanced to Oscar contention. The red carpets are always a fan favorite. J-Lo's first appearance, post-divorce announcement. Oscar winners, including Angelina Jolie. They attract celeb watchers. For moviegoers, it's about the films.
This is the right time.
BC-born Pamela Anderson in The Last Showgirl.
And there's been a great deal of Oscar buzz around her performance.
3 carrots.
And the Cannes Palme d'Or winner, Honora.
Stop this movie!
The festival was not without controversy. Protests erupted ahead of the screening of Russians at War, showing that country's soldiers on the front lines in the war with Ukraine. Critics call the film propaganda.
It's not right for Canadian public money to be supporting the screening.
Festival organizers pulled the screenings, citing threats, but late tonight announced a screening for Tuesday. And on a lighter note, today, festival organizers announced something to look forward to. Next year, TIFF celebrates its 50th anniversary. Christina Tenalia, CTV News, Toronto.
That is our newscast for this Sunday evening. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Omar and Sandy are here tomorrow. I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.
Canadians have turned to CTV National News for more than 60 years.
And now there's a new national newscast at 5:30.
It's more of the news you trust.
More of the experience you rely on.
Watch Canada's #1 national news now at 5:30 and 11.